Welcome to CEO with Sophie. Just a quick note from me. If you like what you hear, go ahead and join the CEO Club right now by hitting that subscribe button. Not only will you never miss an episode, but you'll also be helping us out more than you know. Thank you and enjoy. Elaine Montilla is the founder of 5X Minority Inc., a company and social media brand dedicated to empowering women and marginalized communities by advocating for greater representation and leadership opportunities in technology and beyond. A TEDx speaker and influential thought leader, she is committed to breaking barriers and creating safe spaces where diverse voices can thrive. Elaine has an extensive career in technology leadership, having served as the CTO at Pearson and the CIO at the CUNY Graduate Center, where she led digital transformation, product innovation, and governance strategies. Elaine's impact has been widely recognized. She was honored as a top 100 outstanding LGBTQ plus executive role model for Yahoo Finance, named one of the top 100 women in tech by Technology Magazine, recognized among the top 100 Latinas of 2024, and awarded High Tech 100 Hispanic Technology Leader for 2024. As a trailblazing Latina in tech, she continues to break barriers in a traditional male-dominant industry. In this episode, we hear Elaine's inspiring background from moving to the States at 17 to being a C-suite leader. We uncover key attributes she thinks will drive your career forward and how important personal branding is. Let's get into it. Hi, Elaine. Welcome to the podcast. It's amazing to have you here today.
Nice to be here, Sophie. Thank you.
So I really wanted to get you on board with us because I know that we are very much in like similar areas. We support the same things. And I know when we spoke before, we were both really passionate. So it's always good to speak to someone else, get someone else's opinion and hear about your story as well, which I think will be really inspiring for so many people. So let's dive into that. Would love to just get a little bit of an overview on yourself, your background and who you are.
Yes, awesome. Delighted to be here. Let me start at the beginning. I can tell you that I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I moved to the US at the age of 17 to go into college. Education was something that was really important to my mom. And so she took the risk of moving to a new country as an immigrant. And I am so grateful for her relentlessness for all of us. And so I got started in technology early on through watching my brother, to be honest with you. He's the oldest. And I remember watching him open computers in front of me. And so I was very curious and I was like, what's happening here? Maybe I can get into that. I also love people. And so psychology and computer science were two things that I'm always bridging together. And so that's how I got started working in tech. And if you want more details, let me know.
Yeah, well, let's, I suppose, give people a little bit of a understanding of what you've been doing most recently, and kind of the scale of your work as well.
Yes, more recently, I've been working in EdTech as a chief technology officer for an EdTech company here in the US. And I really love education. I think that that is what has connected me with, my career path and so many things that I like to embark on. I think education is one of the reasons I'm here speaking with you today. If I didn't get my degrees, I don't think people would have taken me seriously, especially when they looked at your resume and look at your, name and all the bias that you and I are fully aware of. So that was a big deal. Prior to working there, I worked at the City University of New York at a graduate school for 17 years, also in education. I think there's a pattern here. And I was the chief information officer when I left 2.5 years ago. I think that my love for the work that we do came from everything that I experienced as a woman in tech when I came to this country. I felt very isolated. I felt like I looked different from everyone else. Look at my hair, and I had a very strong accent. So I felt like, oh my God, I don't fit in, and I feel like I don't belong anywhere. And it was a big struggle. And I see other women going through that same struggle now. And that's one of the reasons I started 5X Minority. And 5X Minority really started as a blog. One of the things that I learned is that other women did not have access to the information that I had access to once I made it to the C-suite. And I wanted to make sure that I could share more information with them. So I just started writing. And after delivering my TEDx talk, I decided to make it into a company because so many women were reaching out to me and even crying, saying, "Oh my God, I feel seen. I feel like you're actually speaking about the things that are important to me." And so, as a Latina immigrant, I feel that it's important to have a space where you can use your voice, where you can use writing and speaking and working with companies so that you can help elevate the voices of women in tech, which you and I know we need more of today.
Yeah, definitely. That's why we're both here, right? That's part of the reason I started a podcast is, women in technology. I think women just in business in general. Let's get everyone's stories out there and hopefully gives people the resources that they need to push forward and the opportunity. I have a question actually from what you were mentioning around, education and you're a big believer in it. Do you think that having a degree helps you within the tech world, especially nowadays? Would you recommend for people to go and get a degree within technology?
That's a very good question. And my answer today would be yes. It still does today. Is that changing? Yes, it is also changing, but I don't think it's changing as fast as people think. And I think, especially if you're a person of color, it's really hard because we don't have access to the networks that other people have access to. And so, one of the only ways that we can shine is through our accomplishments and our degrees. And I can tell you that I kept looking through certifications because I knew that my degree alone was not enough. I knew that there were things that I did not learn in college that I needed if I wanted to get out in the real world. And so I started getting certifications on project management and computer information courses, AI. And I think all of that is helpful. I think in the future, it may not be as important, but not all companies are there. And I can tell you that a company sometimes will have a grid that if you don't have the minimum requirements, they won't even look at your resume. And so you want to make sure that you have a way in at the moment.
Yeah, I do agree. Obviously, I work in recruitment, so I see this from the other side where
Yeah.
it is, a requirement a lot of the time. I do think it depends. I think obviously the more senior you get within your career, it's kind of like, oh, well, you have the experience. So that's fine. But I think especially when you're starting out, there's so many people now that are going into technology and trying to get into the field. So if you've got a degree, it does really help.
Right. Especially if you're starting now. And you probably
Mhm.
know this,
Yeah.
Sophie. There's some job descriptions that would say you need this degree or equivalent, right? Of like 5 or 10 years. And if you don't have that and you don't have the education, then how are you going to get in? Then you're automatically out of the pool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it is really difficult unless you have the network, like you say. And just to, I suppose, caveat this, and I think I've mentioned this once or twice before, I don't have a degree. I never went to uni. I left school at 16.
Okay.
And for me, it was the right decision. I'm not in technology. I mean, I recruit for it, but I'm not in technology.
Right.
So I've never really had a career where I necessarily needed a degree.
Hmm.
Um, so from my opinion, I don't think that for what I wanted to do, I needed one. But obviously everyone's different. Every industry is different. And I do think it can really help if you're in a position to,
Yeah.
get a degree in this day and age.
Yeah, it's so good you mentioned that, Sophie, because there are so many different perspectives and answers. And I think people sometimes want like a one answer, like the solution for me, what would it work? It really depends. It depends on you. It depends on your connections. It depends on your career. It depends on the place where you want to end up. And not everyone needs a degree. That is true. There are a lot of, even in technology now, apprenticeship and digital certifications are enough for a lot of those positions. So you have to really think about where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What is the field? And then do some research and find out what's going on today.
Yeah, definitely. And ask questions. If you've got access to people that are in these jobs like yourself, drop you a note and say, hey, what do you think? Or do you think I should get a degree? So feel free to ask people. Don't be afraid to do that because they'll give you, I suppose, real advice rather than just reading it. So yeah, no, I think that's really useful. Now, something that I also wanted to ask you about, because you talk around doing technology within the education sector. What does technology look like within the education sector? And do you think that it's, utilizing the latest technologies at this point?
No. No, I don't think in the education sector we are as advanced as even now me coming from the corporate side of the world, I can really see the difference between working at a public institution and working at a private corporate space with an $80 million budget. The resources are not there. And I would say it's not because they don't want to. One, I think we're more cautious and we want to make sure that things make sense before you jump. I think in corporate, you take more risk, um, and you don't have the money and the funding available to jump into the latest AI technology. Sometimes you spend a lot of time trying to get funding to replace the computers that the students are using, to replace the backend infrastructure, some of the switches and the access points that have been there forever. So if we had more money in education, I think they would do that. And I'm not speaking for all education. My experience comes from the public school system. So maybe private schools do have more access. Yeah.
And that I was just curious about that because, I've never really seen when I was back at school. I mean, it's going back quite a few years ago, but we didn't have the greatest tech. So yeah, it's just something that I'm curious about. But again, it depends on, public, private. Do these companies have money at the end of
They
the
need
day?
more funding. They need more
Yeah. Yeah. Don't we all actually?
Yeah.
We all do. And something that I wanted to talk to you about, and I really want to understand, I suppose, that leadership piece and some skills that you think that are useful that you've learned as well over the years around leadership. So, looking at some of the articles you write and a lot of the blogs and stuff that you've
Mhm.
done previously, you've mentioned thought leadership. So, I'd love to get just an understanding of what thought leadership is and maybe what skills that you need within that space.
Yeah, I love that question. In my mind, when I think about thought leadership, I have like three things that come in. The first one would be you're consistently offering fresh insights, right? You are challenging the status quo and you are guiding others toward better solutions. I think that sometimes we get too comfortable and we just want to go with the flow. And sometimes that's the easiest thing to do, and that's okay. But you want to make sure that you think out of the box and ask more questions. I think that it requires deep subject matter expertise. So, doing a certification on AI, it's something that I consistently thinking of and doing right now, reading blogs, listening to podcasts. So you want to know what's going on so that you can talk about it. But also in terms of skills, I think the ability to listen. I think sometimes we don't understand. I mean, you say it and people are like, yeah, 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 yeah. But I don't think anyone really understands how important that is and how it could help you find solutions, help other people connect with you, and work through complex ideas. So I think those are the skills that are needed. I think that for me, I mentioned education. I consider myself a lifelong learner. And I think that if you don't have that, it's really hard to move forward with all the changes that are happening right now so fast. You want to make sure that you are not only learning every day, but also being curious, right? So curiosity and being a lifelong learner are two things that really help me be flexible and go with the flow. Because if you're not, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I think that flexibility piece is interesting. That's
Right.
something that and especially if you're managing people and you're leading people, you have to be flexible because everyone's different, and honestly, you don't know what's gonna happen in one day. So, yeah, you've got to
Yeah.
be flexible with your responses, but you only do that by learning, new things around you.
And something really important that you just mentioned is that everyone is different. And I think sometimes as leaders, we have this one size fits all and we try to have a solution for everyone instead of understanding what does Sophie like? What motivates her? How can I support her? And it requires a lot of time and it requires a lot of intentionality in your work. And I think that if you spend time doing that, even if it takes time at the beginning, in the end, you're going to end up winning because people who see that and feel safe around you would do whatever you need them to do.
Definitely.
Yeah,
But feeling safe and feeling heard as well,
exactly.
they go hand in hand. And what are some of the other like power skills that you think are really relevant for, being a leader at this in this day and age?
Two that I always mention, and I've even done workshops on this. One is emotional intelligence, especially in the AI world. I think technology is something that we're all going to have to know whether we like it or not moving forward. And ChatGPT is there to help you with a lot of that. But these skills that people call sometimes soft skills, I love that you say power skills because that's how I see them. Emotional intelligence really empowers you to navigate ambiguity, which we're all going through right now. It helps you build spaces that are psychologically safe for your teams and adapt to different perspectives. And so I think knowing when you walk into a room, knowing how to read the room, knowing if it's the right time to say what you want to say. I always advocate for women to use their voices and speak up. And I also say, well, you want to make sure that it is the right time for you to speak up. And so emotional intelligence really helps with all of that. And then the second one would be effective communication. You mentioned public speaking. I can tell you that a lot of the opportunities that I get now would not be there if I didn't suffer through a public speaking course. I actually had to join a group called Toastmasters, and it was brutal, but it was so helpful. And I always tell the young women that I mentor, emotional intelligence and public speaking, you really need to take your time and understand how all of that works because it helps you when you're trying to sell an idea. It helps you when you're presenting to the board. It helps you when you want your colleague to buy in into these new changes that are coming. I don't think sometimes we speak enough about how these skills connect with each other and help you be successful, especially in the corporate world.
Yeah, definitely. I think emotional intelligence is so underrated.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't think we speak enough about it. Let's do something, Sophie.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna start something else. Watch this space.
Okay.
Yeah, but how actually on that, like, so I know so many leaders, and I've obviously worked for so many managers and stuff, and
Mhm.
not naming any names, obviously, but I definitely think emotional intelligence. Some people I know are naturally gifted and they have it, and other people definitely don't have it.
Yes.
But they've managed to become leaders and managers without it, which is fantastic. I wish I could be like you. But what are some, I suppose, key things that you can do to actually work on that skill set?
Yes, I can tell you that I was not natural. I actually took a few courses. One of them was a week long course, 5 days, learning about emotional intelligence, practicing with other students, hearing examples. What happens here? What happens there? How can you read a room? I think what helps me is that I'm an empath, what they call an empath. And so it's easy for me to feel other people's feelings. Um, and also just silence. I think sometimes when you close your mouth and you spend more time listening, you can actually see things that you normally wouldn't see because you're so anxious about speaking and saying things. Um, I think the third thing that helped me is my spiritual practice because I meditate daily, because I journal. It really helps slow down my brain. I think sometimes because your brain is going so fast, especially women, sometimes we don't know how to deal with silence because we don't want to look stupid and we want people to think that we're smart. It took me a while to learn the power of silence and understanding that it is okay. It's actually an advantage, especially during negotiation. And so, if you need to take a course, I recommend taking it if it's not natural. It is not natural for everyone. It was not natural for me. And I think the combination of all those things really helped me understand okay, let me look around. Let me see what's happening here. Is this the right time? Should I say this publicly? Should I take that person on the side and have a private conversation? Those are all the things that you learn when you go through the course and you practice with other people.
Yeah. And I think what's great is you spoke at the start about how you're a lifelong learner and you're giving us evidence of this. I think it's where a lot of people say that they're a lifelong learner, but you are like, oh, I did a course for this, I did this, I did a course, I learned this, I learned that. And I think that's amazing because you're actually doing what you said you were going to do it by being that
Yeah.
lifelong learner.
The other thing that I would add is I think sometimes as leaders, we are really afraid of being vulnerable. And it took me many years to see it as a superpower because you always want to be the best and I call myself a recovering perfectionist. So I've been trying to let that go for some time, but just knowing that I don't need to be the smartest person in the room helps me with that lifelong mentality. There is always something that I could learn from you, and I don't care who you are, I know there is something I can learn from you. So being humble and vulnerable really helps elevate some of that.
Yeah, I think being vulnerable in a lot of circumstances, that's something that I'm learning at the moment is,
Mm,
whether it's inside or outside of work. And I know we talk a lot around kind of business and the corporate world, but even outside of work, to be vulnerable is good. That's how you build your relationships with everyone. So that's something that I'm learning about at the moment and reading about because we got to work on these things,
I
got
love
to work on it. Um, so talking about the public speaking piece, because this is really interesting to me, because it's
Mhm.
something that I mean, I obviously love talking, as everyone knows, but public speaking is something that I've maybe done bits of, but not too much. So you've given a TEDx talk, which was awesome. Please, everyone, go watch it, and I'll just add the link as well. And obviously, TEDx, massive platform. If you don't know about it, then get to
Mhm.
know about it. How did you prepare for that experience, and
Mhm.
what do you think is the most valuable lesson you've learned from going through that?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's going to connect to the previous topic because it was tough. It was tough. I can tell you. I think some people say, "Oh, it was great and I loved it." It was a lot of work. It was really a lot of work. I don't remember how many years before my TED talk I didn't like memorize anything. Like I never had to memorize anything. And usually they give you a screen reader, right, in front of you so that you can follow. And we didn't have one. So I had to memorize everything from beginning to end. You don't know how many times I said my talk in the shower, to my dog, to my
Yeah.
friends. It really teaches you perseverance. It teaches you how to be authentic because I had so many versions of the same talk, and I wanted my message to be as its core, to so that people can relate to it, right? I wanted it to be authentic, and I wanted people to relate to it, and that took a lot of edits, and that took a lot of cutting and switching. I also wanted to make sure that I had research data so that people can understand that it wasn't just my story. I wanted to make sure that they can connect it to what's really happening at that moment. What did I learn from it? Wow, the power of vulnerability. It really is me saying, "Hey, I have this talk. Do you have a few minutes? Can I run it by you? Can I look stupid in front of you because it's not ready?" And can I get feedback? I even went to my employees and I said, "Listen, if any of you are available after work today, I want to share my talk and get your feedback from my employees at work, my technicians." So it took a lot of work. It's one of the most rewarding things that I've done because my mom was sitting in front of me, right? And she was watching me, even though she doesn't speak English. She can understand because I gave her a copy translated to Spanish. She knew what I was saying, but I knew that her hard work paid off and she could see it herself. So that was one of the best things that came out of it. Plus all the connections and the messaging that I got from people. I really want to inspire other Latinas, especially immigrants and member of the LGBTQ community, to know that if I came here at 17 and I didn't even speak English, imagine what you could do if you were in my place, and you're not in my place because you were born here. So I'm always encouraging the next generation to see what's possible for them.
Yeah, no, it is an amazing story, and honestly, you've got to listen to the TEDx because, yeah, it hopefully will inspire you guys like it did me. And yeah, there's nothing better than having, like I say, I used to be on the stage and perform, so I know the feeling of getting up on stage, and it's nerve wracking.
Mm.
Um, but I think I used to dance, which was slightly different because if you made a wrong move, you can just, pretend you're cool and just, slide out of it. Whereas, like, if you're speaking, like, that's like acting drama. Maybe you should go do movies now. Maybe you're ready for it.
If you're listening out there, so reach out.
Yeah, well, this is now just a reaching out podcast for anyone who wants, a dancer, an actor, we can do everything,
There you go.
taking over the world. What do you think? Obviously, public speaking, how do you think it's affected your leadership journey? And do you think it helps like advance like your career within leadership at all?
Yeah, I think that especially coming from an underrepresented community, it really helped amplify my perspectives, my voice. You want to make sure that you control the messaging coming from you and not leave that to other people. And so it helped me establish credibility, which is really important. It helped me reach spaces where voices like mine are absent and non-existent. And it helped me, in a way, disrupt stereotypes that people usually have when they first meet me and they don't even know what I do or anything about my background. Even in the workplace, I think the biggest impact is knowing how to sell ideas, knowing how to ask for additional budget, knowing how to use emotional intelligence combined with the public speaking skills to sell anything. And we're selling constantly, all day, every day. You're selling to your employees, you're selling to your mom, you're selling to your sister. And so it really helped me now use my 5X minority platform so that I can come to other companies and speak to ERG groups. My God, there are so many ways. I think the list goes on and on.
Yeah. And I do agree with the whole thing around selling. I think everything nowadays is selling. You
Yeah.
don't have to work in a sales job to be selling. And if you're in technology, like I say, you have to push for more budget or you have to have your team buy into your vision. So you're selling something. And if you can learn how to communicate, I think that's actually maybe let's add that as a skill set as a leader is, being able to sell or being able to communicate in that sense because like I say, you have to sell the vision and get everyone on board with you, and that's part of a role as a leader.
Yeah, I think selling and negotiation skills. I mean, I don't want to mention all of them. There are many, but I think those two are really essential. Once you have the communication part and the emotional intelligence locked in.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of all goes into something that I'm looking into a lot at the moment because I think definitely in this day and age is around personal branding. What do you think for especially like a female within the space, do you think it's important for us to look at personal branding now?
Yeah, I just did a carousel on Instagram for 5X Minority on personal branding because it has helped me. And listen, I've been doing personal branding before I knew it was personal branding. I just knew very early on that I couldn't take on the brand of my employer. And I think that is very confusing for a lot of women. I mentor a lot of women who tell me, but who am I without X company? And who am I without that company? I'm like, well, who you are you. And you need to work on your brand because you're not gonna be there forever. And what happens next year when you switch jobs? Now you're gonna take on a new brand and introduce yourself to people in a new way. It's exhausting and it's a lot of work. I think that a strong brand helps you expand opportunities. It signals credibility, which has done for me for many years. You're able to share your unique value proposition. You don't have other people guessing or speaking on your behalf. And it builds visibility. Writing for me and creating a brand, especially on LinkedIn, has been essential for even connecting with people like you. And I think sometimes, you are perceived in a way because you haven't taken the time to create your brand and tell people who you are and introduce yourself to people. And you have to do that constantly. It's not just once and done. Every few months, hey, if you're new here, let me tell you about myself. You want to dominate that. You want to control that. It's yours.
I agree. It's something that I've really, like I say, been looking into. And I do think that yes, you can work for a business and you represent the business, but at the end of the day, you have your own values and, show the world what those values are. And they can change as well. So your values can change year on year almost, but, there's probably some core ones that are always going to be there to show people what they are. And actually, a lot of the time, you'll realize that the business that you work for will probably appreciate what you're doing because then you're bringing more visibility to their business. And if you're obviously you're going to be a great person, a good person, then everyone's like, "Oh, you work with this person, and you work with this business," so they're gonna see the value behind that.
Yeah,
Uh,
especially when it's a good match. I can tell you that after mentoring so many women, sometimes your values and the company you work for, they don't match. They're not the same. And not all of us have the luxury of saying, I'm leaving because my values don't match your values. And I understand that. It's really tough out there. But when it does, then yeah, even more opportunities can come your way. I can tell you that a lot of the advancement in my career came from me having a personal brand and people seeing what I'm doing, what I'm about, what I'm sharing, how I lead teams. And a lot of it is not even me doing it is other people speaking on my behalf, which is even better than you creating your personal brand. And that's rewarding.
Yeah, you need advocates. You need people that are gonna talk about you when you're not in the room. Almost you wanna be famous, that's it. Famous in your industry or in your business.
Oh, I don't wanna be famous. I wanna help. I wanna be of service.
Yeah, exactly. Something I want to just bring up because I read this earlier is just your new article that you posted. I just want to touch upon that and get a little bit of your insights and just for you to share it with some people.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of thinking, and Sophie, I listen to like 4 or 5 podcasts every week. I love learning about everything that's happening out there, and I'm taking a certificate program right now at Cornell. And one of the things that we've been talking about is called the tiara syndrome. And it resonated with me so much because I lived through it that I needed to write about it. And it's this notion that somebody else is coming to crown you. Somebody else is coming to take care of you. Your manager will make sure that your career is moving forward. And it's not true. You are responsible for your work. You are responsible for your knowledge. Anytime I needed a new certification, I was not waiting for my job to pay for it. I would pay for it myself. I would take my exam because I'm investing in myself. And I think a lot of women, especially, sometimes are waiting for the company to do something for you, are waiting for their managers to put a good word in. It's your job and you have to do it yourself. I take any opportunity that I have so that I can promote my work, the things that I'm doing. And I can tell you that, especially for Latinas, is very difficult. It's very difficult because the way we were raised was actually the opposite. I grew up being told to, just be quiet and don't speak too loud and don't get too much attention because that's not good. And I had to go through a process of unlearning all these things that I was told growing up. And so I recommend to all of you to go to 5xminority.com and go to my blog and read this post because it will really resonate with you. I put a lot of notes and personal anecdotes and solutions so that you can work on your personal brand, have notes, collect evidence, write down all of the things that you're doing so that when you are asking for that promotion, you have everything ready. You don't need to think back, oh my God, what did I do this past year? So I think you'll really enjoy it.
Definitely. I enjoyed reading it. And I do think, the cultural thing does come into place. Even obviously I'm British and we were similar in the same way growing up in the
Mhm.
sense of just I mean, especially with my parents, just be silent, no need to draw attention to yourself, literally like you say. So when you actually now are in the career I'm in, it's like, okay, now I can draw attention to myself. And but I think it really just depends on how you've been brought up and
Yeah.
the circumstances, doesn't it?
Yeah, one of the things that we hear a lot is that if you work really hard, your work will speak for itself. It
Mhm.
does not. It really does not. And I've seen a lot of very smart women waiting for that to happen, and it will not happen because you have to be visible. You have to be out there. I I know that people will not know how amazing you are until you tell them. You have to tell them, and you have to advocate for yourself in any way that you can. If you're comfortable, of course. You don't want to force people to do things they're not ready to do, but I want people to have the knowledge and understand what's happening out there.
And I
Yeah.
I I absolutely love that and totally agree. Like, you have to I always say, actually, "Make it happen." That's, like, my saying. It's like, "I'm just gonna make it happen."
Yeah.
And that's because I think I've started to learn that I have to go and make something happen, otherwise it's just not gonna happen. And do you know what? I wish someone would just knock me on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, here's £50 million." I'd be quite happy with that, or I'd be happy to get, like, a promotion. If someone wants to help me, again, now we're just
Right.
asking. But I'm happy for that, but it doesn't happen,
Yeah,
that often anyway,
yeah.
so
You hear people a lot on social media saying no one is coming to save you, and
yeah,
that's true. No one is coming to save you. My mom is not going to do it. Let me tell you, every time I start a new degree, my mom would look at me and say, "Mija, why another one? Aren't you tired? Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, ma, I need it. I need it." Because that's the way she was brought up, and she would see me study so much, and I always work full time. She was like, "You're not tired. You want a break?" I'm like, "No, no break. I need to make it to the C-suite. I can't take a break."
yeah, yeah,
But it's important to understand different cultures. It's important to understand what is working in the place where you are, right? So I'm in the US. I want to make sure that you understand how things work here in the
yeah,
US.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so insightful, and I absolutely love some of the answers that you've given. And
Oh,
I do definitely agree with, well, all of them actually. I was going to say 99.9%, but I was like, I couldn't think of anything. It's been so good, and I do think that there's some great stuff that you've got going on. So definitely, we need to make sure we're sharing that so everyone can see and take away some of the key pieces that you've mentioned here as well. Now we have a closing tradition here. We have a question that we always ask people. So this question is, what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
mm, very good. Ooh, only one? Okay. I'm sorry.
Everyone says that.
One that I really love that I wish I knew early on was learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that I missed out on some opportunities because I was listening to my body. I didn't understand fear. I didn't understand why fear would come, especially going into public speaking. I learned to allow the fear to be there. And I say that at the end of my talk and do it anyways, right? And so going into a conference room, being around people who were way higher than me, I had to learn over the years that that feeling that comes in, you have to just let it be there. You have to allow it. And early on in my career, I would fight it and then move and shift and do something else instead of no, just let it be there and go through. Just let it be there and keep moving forward. So I wish I knew that earlier that I will feel uncomfortable and that's okay. It's part of the process. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I think discomfort leads to growth. And every time I've been like really uncomfortable or I've had like a really tough year or a tough like conversation, I've always grown from it. And that's what you just have to keep reminding yourself.
Right, right. And also knowing that failure is success in progress. You know how like the battery that's getting full, like failure is like 75%, but you're getting there. Just keep moving forward and don't be so
Yeah.
hard on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm going to take that away. And there's so many little gems here that I'm just like, oh, I love that. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time today. And yeah, I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you for having me and for creating this space for all of us to come in and do more sharing. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much.